Hi, and welcome back to this video, which is going to be a quick introduction to surds. Now, I suppose the first question to answer is, what is a surd? Now, a surd is a number that you give in the form of a square root. So you may have solved an equation and got the answer root 2. Now, why would you keep it as a root? It's a valid question. Well, the reason is for accuracy. If you actually put square root of 2 into your calculator, you'll get 1.412 and so on and so on. Now, wherever you round that to, you'll be losing accuracy, so mathematicians decide to keep certain numbers as square roots to preserve accuracy. So, the most common kind of question you'll get in an exam is simplifying a surd. So, you may get an answer like root 8, and in order to simplify that, you have to split it up. Now, you know that 8 is 4 times 2, so root 8 could be root 4 times root 2. Now we know that the square root of 4, this first part here, is 2. So if that becomes 2, and the root 2 just stays as root 2, since you cannot simplify any further, you get that root 8 is equal to 2 root 2. So you've simplified your surd, and that's all there is to it. Now I'm just going to give you an example here. So if you could simplify root 20, you can pause the video and I'll go through it in a second. Okay, so root 20. Now there are a few things you can try. So the first thing I might try is root 10 root 2. Now this can't be simplified any further, because 10 can't be split into any other square numbers. I mean, you could go from root 10 to root 5, root 2, but that's not useful, so we don't do that. So what do we do? Well, we want to look for a square number, so we can go for root 4, root 5, because we know that 4 times 5 is equal to 20. Now, as you saw in the previous example, 4 can be square rooted, so we end up with 2 root 5. The 2 from the square root of 4, and the 5, since the 5 has to just stay as root 5. Okay, simple enough. So what about a more complicated example? Say we have root 32. Well, in order to simplify that, we could first split it into root 8 and root 4, because 8 times 4 is 32. Now we know that 4 can be square rooted to 2, so we have 2 root 8. Now what? Well, we've simplified it, but we haven't simplified it all the way. So, let's take this root 8 part. That could again be simplified or split up into root 4 root 2. And we have our 2 from the previous part. Now, we know again, like before, 4 can be square rooted, so we have our 2. Then we have another 2 from this 4, and our root 2. They're all multiplied together. So 2 times 2 is 4, so we end up with 4 root 2. Simplified. Now, what about a practical example? Let's say that you had an equation like 2x squared equals 120. Now, how would you simplify that? Well, first of all, we have to solve the equation as normal. So we divide by our 2, and we get x squared equals 60. Now, we know that the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So if we square root both sides, we get x equals the square root of 60. Now we can express this root 60 in surd form. So we know that root 60 is root 15 times root 4. And you know that root 4 roots to 2, so we end up with 2 root 15, plus or minus. When you're solving an equation, you always put that plus or minus in the front there, because when you square root a number, you don't know whether it's come from a positive or a negative number, since both numbers squared will always give you a positive number. And that is a quick and simple introduction to surds.